All right, let's welcome our guest, my good friend Mick Tully. And Mick has been training in martial arts for over 30 years in several styles,
No,
more than
it is
30 years, right? How many years now?
36.
36 years. Wow. And Mick is a certified instructor under Guru Daniel Santo, Bruce Lee's training partner. And Mick fully believes that his martial arts enriches all other areas of life and is not just an insurance policy for things when things kick off.
That's
Mick
one of
is
my classic lines. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And Mick is the host of Mick's Martial Arts podcast, where he sits down with martial artists from all over the world. And the seminars and classes that he's taught at Excel Martial Arts have been absolutely incredible. And Mick's got such a huge passion for martial arts and its incredible benefits. And he really has made such a positive difference to so many people's lives through the martial arts, and he's made a real impact on my life. Several years ago when we met, he's really opened my eyes to the different styles of martial arts and really opened my eyes even more to the benefits of it and how it can impact your life. So I know he's got an inspirational story to share, and thank you so much, Mick, for being here. And I'm grateful for our friendship and you being here today. So thank you.
No, ditto. Trust me, I'm the lucky one. I get all the benefits out of it as a yeah. I'll quickly just have to preface this with Liam knows this story well, but I knew Liam before I actually knew Liam, because I don't know if you guys know, but he was on Strictly Come Dancing once. It was a partner was Anton. No, he was actually on another quite famous show, Britain's Got Talent, as I recall. Yeah, and I just said to him as he rang me, whenever Liam rings me, it always has Liam Richards, and there's a picture of me, myself, Liam, and Shani on a night out after a seminar, and then underneath he's got talent. The same way that with an exclamation mark. So every time it comes up, it's Liam Richards, he's got talent. That's what always comes up. But myself and my wife years ago, we were watching the TV show, and you were on the show, and you ripped off the shirt, and what's Amanda Holden was doing all of this, and I think Williams wasn't there, but he would have been doing this too. And my wife looked and she went, "Isn't that what you do?" Pointing to the TV. And I went, "Yeah." And she went, "So how is it that you don't look like those guys?" And I said, "In reality," I said, "if I ever got my hands on either of those two, by the way, you and Danny, great guys, wicked martial artists, wonderful human beings. But obviously at the time, I just saw two really good looking dudes on the TV jumping around doing psychics and stuff to music. And I said, if I ever get my hands on these guys," I said, "that's the ambulance, that's the hearse." I said, "These guys are going to get this, right?" And Annie started laughing. And then this is actually a good story to work out, for the guys to work out how we actually did initially meet. So of course, fast forward a couple of years, and we turn up to do a seminar for Michael, the powerlifter from Sheffield. Mike, can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember his surname. Mike.
Yeah, he'll come to me and say, really, really nice guy. Apologies, Mike, if you ever get to watch this. But it will come to me in a moment. And we pulled up into the car park. And Al Peason at the time, I think, was driving an XKA, or an XKR actually. So he was in a pretty smart car. And then this Overfinch Range Rover pulls up. Leon pops out. He's got one of the guys with him. He pops out. So immediately I'm looking at this car going, wow. And then I see this young, good-looking dude get out, and I'm like, "Urgh." I immediately hate him, but only because I was old, fat, and at the time probably driving a transit van and knowing me, a Lexus of some description. And I was absolutely raging. And then as the seminar progressed, you introduced yourself, and it was great. Penny still didn't drop. And then halfway through, you were like easily. I was so surprised, because I could tell you were a really good martial artist, but you were such a great student on that seminar, because you were like, "Oh, can we? Can you show me this?" And looking for all the little small details that most people miss. And it was only halfway through the seminar that Michael Keys, that was it. Michael Keys was the guy who hosted it. And Michael says, "He's the guy off Britain's Got Talent." And I went, "You what?" And it was like, yeah. And then at the end, we had a little bit of a mess around, spar, as you remember. And it was pretty naughty because I think I might have let a few go. You gave more than as good as you got, but I let a few go just so that I could go home. And as I was driving back, I rang up my wife and I said, Annie, guess what? She went, what? And I went, you know the guy off the TV with the six pack? And she went, yeah. I said, well, he might have a black eye tonight. And she was like, no, you didn't have a black eye at all. I think I might have put the glove on you maybe once. And I said, and she went, what? And she went, you're such a petty man. I said, do you know what the real killer is? I said, he's such a lovely guy. And she was like, oh, really? And then obviously we're at your wedding. You know, that's how much, I love you. But it was really funny because you actually made me rethink quite a lot. Now, I'm going to be honest here. You don't even know that I was going to say this, but you made me, the term Mac Dojo gets thrown around a lot, but you were actually the first person that I met that had a really professional setup that didn't have a really ulterior motive as far as I was concerned. Because normally you go in and, it's, the guys have this agenda that they can sell. They sell the image, the whole lot, but then they, maybe about fourth on the list, they actually want you to improve at martial arts, and maybe about eighth down the list, they actually want you to improve your life. Whereas you were the complete opposite. It was really, really. First of all, it was refreshing, especially for a jaded old cynic like me, because when you're in martial arts, as you know, martial arts is full of weirdos, full of fantasists, full of lunatics. And, when you just meet someone who just actually isn't what you expect them to be. And I didn't mean that I expected you to be a horrible individual or anything, but it was just very refreshing. And then obviously, met all your wonderful family who are all wonderful human beings, and, your wife. And, it was just really good. It was really good to see. Because in martial arts, especially the younger guys that come through now, they're either like beating their chests, talking about, MMA and just being idiots. And I don't like how what they're doing is they're promoting something that isn't Budo, it isn't martial arts. And I really believe in that without sounding cliche. Do you know me? As the minute I hear people start saying, oh, I'm a peaceful warrior, I won't swear, but I'm like, really? You're full of BS, mate. You're peaceful because you're scared. The only reason you behave yourself is because, there's people out there that'll do that to you. And it was you were promoting everything that I liked about martial arts. That's the best way of putting it.
Thank you so much, Mick. I really appreciate that. And I remember that time we first met as well, and all the great times we've had since then.
Yeah.
And and take us back to when you started martial arts, when you experienced bullying. How did that happen for you, and how did you learn to overcome it?
Well, we go from a really, really light and frothy, great moment to like a really dark moment. My father, God rest his soul, passed away 2 years ago in October. And for the first 16 years of my life, at least, we had a less than good relationship. But looking back on this now, especially if there's anybody here who's still living with their parents and they're just not getting on with their parents, one thing that I'd like to just say to you is one of the best and worst moments of your life will be when you realise that your parents are just human. They're just people. And 9 times out of 10, they're way more screwed up than you are. So, you might be there 16, full of existentialist angst and stuff, and trying to work out your way in life. But you've got to remember, your parents are maybe 20 years, 25 years older than you. So that seems a lot to you, but that's nothing. So they're dealing with everything that you're dealing with, but they're also dealing with right now the lockdown, paying the mortgage, are they going to keep their job, everything like that. And at the same time, trying to be the adult in the relationship. So, the only thing I would say is if you don't have a great relationship with your parents, just as Mark Twain said, count to 10. And then if that doesn't work, count to 10 again. That's how to solve anger. But me and my dad had a really bad relationship. And it was just, he was of that generation where some of the people who might be watching this, if they're a bit older, there used to be a cartoon years ago called Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. And that was the whole that was the threat that your mother always dropped on you, which sort of wait until your dad gets home and you knew what was going to happen. So you didn't try not to misbehave. And my issue was, in America, when you get arrested, you always have the right to remain silent. As I would say, you have the right to remain silent, but I didn't have the ability to. So my problem is I'd always exactly say what I would think, which got me into trouble quite a lot. And my father was an Irish construction worker, and I'm very mindful of, I look back on some interviews that I've given, it makes him look like a real ogre. And to me at the time, he was. And he actually was. His behaviour was terrible. But it was only as the years went on that I realised, what he was going through. And that's not to make, by the way, that's not to make any sort of excuses for, beating up children and stuff. It isn't that at all. But, he just basically ran the house with a rod of iron, and everybody in the family, were all on board with that. And unfortunately with me, I've always been a bit of a rebel. So the thing is, it's like, right, okay, I don't care what the price is. I'm not going to kowtow to anybody. So literally that meant I got beaten quite a lot. So, if you had to do a word association thing with my relationship with my father, I'd just say abject fear straight off the bat. I was like, literally, that guy could make me wet myself with fear when he walked in through the door, because he just wouldn't know what sort of mood he'd be in, what was going to happen. So I retreated into a bit of a world of reading American comics, which I'm still a big fan of. And what I liked about it was he had absolute good and evil, so that was it. The Joker was terrible. Like now we look at it and you look at the Joker and you think, oh, I wonder what this poor guy went through. But when in my era, it was like, he was a horrible person. And so like, it's really, really funny because I've read so many like deep, in-depth psychological articles based on archetypes and heroes, because I'm certainly not saying I'm a hero, but I'm a hero of my own story, which is the truth. Like Joe Rogan always says that, be the hero of your own story. And I, even as a kid, I always knew that I was destined. Liam knows this line because I've told him it so many times. We were not born to have a life of mediocrity. That's the thing. And I know there's nearly 8 billion of us on the planet. So, there's a very famous martial artist once told me, yeah, but Mick, you got to remember, you're unique. You're 1 in a million. And I said, so there's 8,000 Mick Tullys on the planet. And he was like, what? And I went, when you look at it that way, I said, because, how can I be unique when there's so many of us? But you can in some way. So anyway, I got myself into this, into like reading loads of comic books. And, I always aligned myself to Batman more than anyone, because I wasn't a billionaire, but at least my mum and dad were still alive. So if you don't know anything about Batman, he's an orphan, but he did become a billionaire. So, or the only difference between me and him was £1 billion, and he did more sit-ups than me. But what even then, when I was reading it as a kid, it was the whole, you can be more, like, because I can't get bitten by a radioactive spider. I can't make, I'm Tony Stark. Yeah, all right, he made a robot suit. So literally, he's just Batman with a better suit, basically. But I couldn't be Kal-El. I couldn't be like the ultimate immigrant coming from a faraway planet, all of this. So, it was, I started reading about Batman, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Which obviously, not only was he the world's greatest detective, but he was also like, he studied martial arts. And when you're a kid, that is like, it's mad, because that's why I truly believe that you have a moral, you really have a moral obligation, especially when you're teaching children, because, deep down, you've got to remember the subtext you're teaching these kids is, if someone's doing something you don't like or disagree with, just punch them in the head. So, when you think about it that way, that's a powerful thing to be thrown into a little brain, you know what I mean? So it's like, it should be tempered with quite a lot of wisdom. So obviously that's what got me into martial arts. And then obviously I was never a fan of Bruce Lee, to tell you the truth. But I was always super interested in martial arts. And then
when did you start martial arts? And because
well, this is the thing. I got into martial arts at 16. I was interested as a kid. But this was the thing. You know, Lil knows this. I'm very lazy by my. There's two things I hate: laziness and hypocrisy. And the thing is, luckily enough, I hate hypocrisy more than I hate laziness, because I know deep down by my very nature I'm quite a lazy individual, but I would hate to be a hypocrite. So it was just too much effort to get anywhere. And if you want to know the truth, I was really scared as well, because not only was I getting beaten up at home, but I was getting beaten up at school by a guy who was a notorious bully. And just remind me to, I'll tell you that later on in the interview, I'll tell you how that all ended up. But yeah, this guy basically had a cottage industry, bullying kids at school. Like, it was almost like a full-time job. But I was the guy who was the whistleblower, so he got thrown out of the school. But the damage that had been done to me, like, it was only when I got to 16 that I was actually, I think, mentally able to be able to go in, because I had the idea of going training, but just that thought of getting punched in the head, which, you know, one hearing aid later, you know, mild brain damage, severe nerve damage to my head, never getting knocked out, never getting punched, never getting dropped. It was quite funny, because it was quite a ridiculous, abject fear to have. But the idea of getting punched in the head, which, you know, again, you've heard me say so many times, for some people it's a cup of like cocoa, and for other people it's an alarm clock. And at the time, I thought it was a cup of cocoa that it would send me to sleep. And then I realized that getting punched in the head was just, wake up, Mick, time to go. And I didn't realize that. So I got into martial arts, believe it or not. I was still scared. I was full of bravado. But what I'd done was, before I was 16, I tried to kill myself twice. And trust me, if you ever think that you're feeling low, that should, you know, the beauty of getting older, and the beauty of the passage of time, is even the really awful things just become anecdotes in the end. So nowadays, it's like, this is like something I could throw into an interview or at a dinner party, and they go, "Oh, have you ever felt that low?" I went, "Well, yeah, tried to kill myself." And they go, "Really? You were that low?" And I went, "Well, I was really low, tried to kill myself, failed at that." So I wasn't in a good place when I thought about doing it. And then I find out that the only thing that I really want to do, I can't even do that either. So I had it. And then obviously I was at a complete rock bottom. And I was trying to be someone that I knew I wasn't. So it's quite funny. It was like, the mindset was there, but everything that should have been built upon good foundations, which is what martial arts give you. It's great to, you know, you can have bravado and you can be super brave. Annie says hello, by the way. She's just,
hi, Annie.
Yeah. So yeah, my mindset was there, because I knew mentally that I could be strong enough to do it by this stage, but I didn't have any of the wherewithal. I didn't have any of the prowess to be able to do it. And I was queuing up outside of a nightclub in Coventry. So I'm 16, not supposed to be in there anyway. And I'd heard of Jeff Thompson by legend, because he was a legend even then in Coventry. And I was queuing up, and it's in his book where he beat up these 4 squaddies. But like, if there's any kids watching this, the next part, you don't, let's just put it this way. He hit 4 separate people, like bang, 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 bang. And each one of them dropped. And I was like, this is like a superpower. And then I read his book afterwards and found out that he did hit him. He did hit these guys, but there was actually a bit of an equalizer here. So that's the reason why they dropped. I thought it was a Kime or his martial arts prowess. And I find out that it was nothing more spectacular than a knuckle duster on both hands. So I was just like, wow. And immediately the way he conducted himself afterwards, so he didn't go crazy or anything. He just went from being this, like, you know, dealing with like what I would have thought was the worst thing in the world, to being able to be nice to people afterwards. And I saw him and I went, what was that? And he goes, what was what? And I said, that whole with all of this. And he goes, martial arts. I do karate. And I was like, I've always wanted to do karate. And he told me where he trained, and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And it took 2 buses to get there. So I turned up, and then this is still, I'll tell you how lazy I was. I was like, 2 buses too far. I'm going to see if there's a club nearer to me, right? So what I did was, luckily enough, one of the guys I went to school with was my first instructor, a guy called he trained with one of my first instructors, a guy called Andy Margaret. And I walked in there, and Andy was great. He was sort of very old school, very, very, very traditional. You know, it's like, you know, there was, you know, sensei all the time. Even now, I still call him sensei out of habit. But yeah, went in there. And this is the one, especially for anybody new who's getting into training, I would just tell you, just stick with it. Because what I did was, I don't want to put you off. By the way, you're training with one of the best guys I know, so you'll be fine. But what I did was I just swapped getting beaten up by amateurs by getting beaten up by people who actually knew how to fight. So then it was like, God, what do I do now? So I just stuck with that. And yeah, it was, you know, that's where I got my first, that's where I got my first stand in karate with Andy Margaret. But it was, yeah, it was amazing because, again, it was the perception versus the reality. I saw Jeff Thompson do this. I went, that's the answer to all my problems. And then I realized that I just jumped into a swimming pool full of sharks. I'd gone from where I could, you know, but you don't realize that at the time. But then sometimes I think to be desensitized to real violence, you have to be in there. Yeah, that's why I truly believe that, yeah, if you've gone into martial arts for self-defense, there has to be a point where you feel a little bit disturbed by what's happening. And if you're okay with that, then brilliant. And if you're not, if you're only in there to work out, why ever go there? I don't need to be in a car crash to know it sucks, right? So that's what I always say about martial arts. If you don't ever want to fight, avoid it. Yeah, and don't let your ego drag you into it. You know, oh, but what would happen if? And you know, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. What would happen if I win the Euro Millions? So it's just as much chance of me winning the Euro Millions as there is there, you know, of getting seriously attacked. So yeah, that's how I got into martial arts. Yeah, it was, but it proves how I used to see everything in very binary terms, black and white, and then I realised then there's shades of grey. But when you're a kid, binary is the way forward, man. Do or do not, man. There is no try. Yoda taught us that one.
Definitely. So how did martial arts influence you at school? What happened with the bullying? Did it help you? Did it come at the...
I was gone. I was gone. This is the one thing. The one thing you know about me, Liam, is I will either solve a problem or I'll just take myself out of it. So by the time the bullying at school pretty much finished, that settled itself up because this kid, I won't mention him by name because he's passed away. And again, this is probably a good time to throw one of my absolute favorite. It's not even a cliche. I live my life by this. It's, you know, when people say, oh, there's such bad people in the world, karma will get them. Oh, I believe in karma. I may believe in karma, but do you know what? I think karma is for people who are too lazy to exact revenge, yeah? Because it's like, let the universe sort it out. And I'm like, no. Didn't happen to the universe, happened to me. You know, and like revenge is a dish best served cold. So I'll tell you that because that's a little bit further on down the line with that guy in particular. But yeah, I was still scared of my father, but because I was still living at home, obviously, because I was doing my A-levels at school. But by that stage, what I'd learned was, yeah, as questionably as good as I am at martial arts, what I think I am pretty good at is I'm quite good at getting on with people. And I know that I've been doing far too much talking, but I'm very good at listening to people, very good at listening to people because they don't have to say a lot for me to be able to understand what they're on about. Yeah, quite a lot of people aren't like me. Yeah, because I'll turn around, I'll tell you everything about me. I don't care less. And I don't care if you'll come back in 5 years' time and say, oh, well, do you remember that time? Oh, that might hurt me. I don't really care because there's no real secrets out there that I'm not worried about anyway. There's nothing I wouldn't tell you that I did anyway. So what I learned was, luckily enough, because I was Irish, I'd swallowed the Blarney Stone a little bit. I was quite a good-looking guy. As you might have guessed, even at 50, nearly 52. Still a bit of a charming individual. So I learned that if people actually like you, they're not really like predisposed to try and beat you up. Yeah. And obviously I'd started karate, and because I was training with some pretty tough dudes and because I've been competing and stuff, most people were more than wary to stay away from that side of things. So it was, that's why I always say it's the insurance policy. Because, you know, I've said to people, you've got to remember, I've got 35 years, no claims here, mate. You know?
So when you talk about attempting to take your own life twice before the age of 16, and then how I know you've told me more stories about maybe how that continued, or how you went into some form of depression and you went to the doctors, and can you tell us that story? And how did that relate to the bullying?
Yeah, definitely. Well, definitely to the bullying. I've got more than a touch of OCD, right? So I've had three episodes in my life. One was at 16. This is how OCD I am, right? So it's every 16-year cycle. So at 16, I had it. And it was literally, that was the case of, the best way to put it is where you're not living the life that you were supposed to have. So, that I knew there was more to me than this. And I remember distinctly at 16 thinking to myself, I can't live like this. I can't be this fraudulent. I know there's more to me. So, fast forward, go through the martial arts, move to Germany, still carry on training, everything. And then at 32, being Irish and Catholic, I'd do all the training, and then I'd go out and, drinking just got me. I went, I was a social drinker, but I was a very sociable social drinker. And that was the one point where I was like, right, okay, I'd done Wing Chun and Thai boxing over in Germany when I lived over there. I was still reading all the magazines. I'd always been still interested in like Jeet Kune Do and Kali and stuff, but just never driven enough to do it. And I'd resigned myself to being just a guy who was quite well known locally and quite good at martial arts on a local scene and stuff. And then I went away on a stag weekend with a load of my friends, and we went over and I drank far too much vodka and Red Bull. So the combination of the vodka and the taurine in the Red Bull, I came back and I literally remember lying in bed which is now realistically a bad hangover. And I remember looking up at the ceiling, and I've spoken to friends of mine afterwards, and they said, "Oh, you just had the DTs, which are the delirium tremens, which are like it's almost like alcohol poisoning." And they were like, "Yeah, I had that loads of times." And I was like, "I had it once." And trust me, I thought, I spoke to God and said, "Yeah," and trust me, he didn't look anything like Morgan Freeman kids, right? So I spoke to God, and I was like, or whoever you believe in, and I was like, "Look, get me out of this, and I promise I'm never going to do it again." And because I've got a very competitive nature with myself, I'd worked out that I couldn't remember where I'd gone more than a week without having a drink, because you'd go out, you'd drink with the guys after training, then Saturday night you'd go out with your mates, or, go for a few beers with the guys after work, So I was like, how far can I go with this? So I went a week, then I went another week, and then I went another week. And then I was like, right, okay, so now I've got this surplus of cash and surplus of time now. And the other one as well is my eldest son, Jack, had just started noticing that I wasn't, that Daddy didn't want to play football for 3 hours on a Sunday morning, right? And I started questioning, why do I drink? Why do I do this? And then it was, because that's what grown men do. And I was like, what? So I'm following the herd again. So I'm not an individual after all. So then what I did was I had this internal battle was, how long can I go for? And then within a month, I decided I was going to buy a motorbike. So 5 weeks later, I did my CBT, which is the first part, compulsory basic training, and did that, and then went out and bought a chopper. So then that made me have to learn to be able to get the bike. And then it was like, so what else do I always wanted to do? And I was like, I've always wanted to go to America and train with Rick Fay and Danny Santo and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't really happen. Yeah, because I bought into the BS and some of it's from well-meaning friends, where they'll turn around and say to you, yeah, but that happens to other people. It doesn't happen to us. It doesn't happen to people like me and you. And I was like, yeah, and I bought that. And then I was like, I went to a seminar down in London that Bob Breen was hosting, walked in. Bob didn't know me. I was with our mutual friend, Sid, at the time. I went down there, and it was Sid who actually got me into that whole thing, yeah. the whole JKD world. And went down there, and it was like, hey, great to meet you, Mick. Yeah, I was like, wow. You're like, I read about you guys in the magazines. You're just like the rest of us. And then it's like train till your idols become your rivals. That's what they always say, isn't it? Right? And none of them are my rivals. They're all my friends now. So I went down there, and I was like, straight back. It was like jumping into a DeLorean going 88. You know, I was like Back to the Future. I was back to being 16 again, going, wow, so I can be. And I don't bear in mind, I've been very successful in business by this stage, and my life had been good, but I had to get to another low to realize that it was a high. And at 32, I thought I was, at one stage, I thought I was losing my mind. But then the one thing I will say to especially more adult members of the audience there is, if you do abnormal behavior long enough, it becomes normal. So, drinking 10 pints of lager on a Saturday night is just a good drink to some people. And to other people, it's like, that's a massive red flag, man. You're doing that week in, week out. And if it's not hurting the people around you, and it wasn't hurting the people around me, but it was like, once I stopped it, it liberated me. So yet again, it was one of those moments, like, all of the greatest thing that this lockdown is a great example of it. It's the really, really bad things. They're the ones that give you quantum leaps in understanding. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was the next big jump. And then, as I said, I go in 16-year cycles with it. And I picked up a neck injury at jiu-jitsu, and I was at work one day, and everything's going swimmingly. But what I didn't realise, I'd signed a lease. Liam knows this. I'd signed a lease on a place in Coventry. My father had been put into a home. By this stage, I was like the adult in our relationship with my father. I was the only one. I'd visit him 3-4 times a week, and as I used to say to my dad, first of all, he said, "Oh, you see, you're proof. You see, I was harsh on you." He said, "But look at how well you turned out." And I was like, "In spite of, not because of that, in spite of." And I said, "Listen, I don't hold any grudges to you, but you got to remember, I'm that against people being treated badly, that even someone who abused me, I can't stand by and watch them suffer." And that's not making me out to be a saint or anything. It's we all know the situation. That there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And if you're okay with doing the wrong things and living with it, then great. But we've all been around people's houses where there's a massive hole in the door where they obviously aren't good with living with doing the wrong thing. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was like my left arm went numb. And then that was the reason I mentioned that is the quantum leap and understanding there was that I was 48 years of age. And I won't lie to you, I was peed off horrifically, because that was the first injury that I'd ever picked up. When my left arm went numb, I thought I was stroking out, and I thought, right, okay. And this is how selfish I was. I was like, if I stroke out, there is no way that I want to survive if I'm not me, if I'm not 110% Mick Tully all the time. And I remember feeling selfish about that. And then I went to see a dear friend of mine, Rosie Sexton, who's my osteopath. She fought in the UFC. If any of you got, she's an inspirational character. If you want to really interview someone, she's great. And I went to see her, and she said, "Yeah, you got spondylitis." And I was like, "Oh God, that sounds awful." She went, "Mick, it's wear and tear." So it's just a big, long word for wear and tear. She went, "So you've had people hanging off your neck, grappling for 20 odd years. You've been punched in the head, and kicked in the head, and elbowed and kneed in the head since you were 16. And through plastering, you've been looking up for the last 30 years as well." She went, "I'm surprised you haven't had it since." So to cut a very long story short, they realized that was affecting my blood pressure, which the great thing about this is a bit of a sidebar here, but anybody who's worried about the lockdown now and everything, we will look back on this interview in 5 years' time and just go, Mick Tully was right. We put our faith in medicine, because guess what? We have been on this planet this long because we have managed to overcome everything. Everything that's been thrown at humanity, we've managed to do it. And believe it or not, I had all of this mental anguish going through my head. And what saved me was going back to the things that I've always said from 16, which is when you're in a bad place, just do more of the stuff that you love. And as long as the stuff you love isn't drinking 10 pints of lager, every night. Yeah. But it was literally a case of doing the stuff I love. And then my doctor was like, here, take some blood pressure tablets, which I'll tell you right now, I struggled with, because I'm like, I'm not that guy who needs medication to keep my life going. And then it was like, read into it, and it was, yeah, you are. But like, I'll tell you right now, the idea of taking the blood pressure medication, Leo, frightened me more than when I was told that I had a brain tumor when I went deaf at 41. Isn't that bizarre? Because deaf at 41, it was like, well, yeah, well, okay, a tumor, what do I do with? But this, a tumor is something that happens to you which you have no effect over. Blood pressure, stress, anxiety, you're all like, and people think that that's stuff you have control over. If you've ever had anxiety, trust me, you have no control over it. Like, the only one great thing that you learn about anxiety is it gives you a laser-like focus. But unfortunately, you normally focus all your attention on very negative things. Yeah, if you can get that laser and send it on to something positive, you'll change the world.
So how have you become more positive over your years? And I remember you telling me about a story years ago when you went to the doctors and they gave you that different perspective. You took a totally different approach with you. I know that had an impact. You told me that story and how it changed your life. What other things have you learned over the years that have helped you be positive? Because we know that bullying can really affect your mindset. It can really take you to some dark places. It can cause you to be so negative to yourself and your own mind that can have long-term effects. How have you able to switch that and become a great leader to others as well?
Yeah, but Liam, you just hit nail on the head. I touched on it there, where at 32, when I went in, the doctor, that's how I got into NLP and CBT through that, because I went in there and I was like, just give me anything. Just give me that. I was at my lowest. And he got a piece of paper, an A4 piece of paper, and he drew a vertical line down it, so put it in half, and then a horizontal line about an inch from the top. And he wrote good. And he said, I'm going to go and get you a glass of water now. So can you write down all the things that you do in your life that make you feel good about yourself? And I was like, it was like, I'm walking the dog with the wife, training, doing the right thing, trying as best I can to try and help others out, and that's not, by the way, a bit of a sidebar. A lot of people spend more time where they're like, well, I'll just focus on helping others. But you're as useless, you're about as useful as a chocolate teapot if you're no good yourself. You have to get all your ducks in order first. Then you get, everyone wants to change the world. Nobody wants to change their underwear. That's how it works, right? And of course, he got me to focus on all the good stuff. And then he came in, he grabbed a piece of paper off of me and he wrote bad. And he went, right, write down a couple of things there that make you feel bad. So I wrote down what made me feel bad. There was like, literally he gave me 20 seconds and I wrote the first three. I didn't realize this at the time, but it was absolute genius what he did. He folded it over, down the vertical line, ripped it in half. He screwed up the bad. So that was literally like, he was destroying my inner demons, not me. But then he threw it at me and he goes, throw it in the bin. So literally I held it for a second, but I threw it straight in the bin, right? And I'd like to say that it was like nothing but net straight into the bin, but it didn't land in the bin. Like, but it landed on the floor. Again, it's a symbolic thing, so it worked, right? So threw it on the floor and he gave me the piece of good and he went, right, do 3 of them a day. And I went, no, just give me some tablets, man. Give me some Prozac, give me something. He goes, no. So that piece of paper, I ended up having to get it laminated because it was in my wallet for at least 4 years. I can still tell you right now, I know every single thing that was on the list. But if you want to know the truth, that's something I don't really share to people because that's a personal thing for me. So I did that. But where you were saying, the bullying thing, the anguish, this is no joke. I'm 52 years of age and I can tell you right now, in a heartbeat, I can tell you exactly how I felt when I would get on a bus, knowing, like, to give you an idea, like that, this is where it will take your mind to, right? There was 8 bus stops from where I went to school to where I lived, right? Each one of those bus stops, I had a designated route, which was my plan A, and then I had a plan B, and I had a very sketchy plan C, so that I would be able to get off that bus and run, and I would know where to go to just to get away from anyone that would be giving me a hard time. And it was only one person that was doing it to me. But the problem was, because school, if you want to see the worst that humanity can offer, just go to a playground, man. Go to a playground at lunchtime.
I've had the same thing, exactly the same thing. And I used to, as the bell rang, I was ready to sprint home, and I sprinted across the field, through the gates, across another field until I was out of there, so I didn't have to see those people. And I did it over and over again.
Yeah, but Liam, you've got to remember that's one of the greatest tenets of martial arts. First of all, awareness. And secondly, how can I get beaten up if I'm not there? But then it's how do you live with that afterwards, because you're there, you feel frightened. But, first of all, you've got to remember we're primal animals, and one of the things that we understand is fear. And people don't want to admit this, but there's a lot of predators out there, some horrible people out there.
Well, my mum didn't want that for me. And she used to pick me up from school, but then it got to a point where I was telling her it was happening. And one time I told her what had gone on, and these lads were giving me trouble and saying they were going to knock me out. They were going to do this, that, and the other. And I told her, and then she said, right, well, let's go and find them then. And if they want to fight you, then they're going to fight you, and you're going to go out and you're going to defend yourself. So I was thinking, I hope we don't see him. I really hope we don't see him on the way back. And anyway, she was putting her foot down in the car. She was determined to fight him. She was like furious. And then we saw them on the side of the street, and there were 4 of them there. And it was one of them that were giving me the most trouble.
Always.
And then she was like, get out of the car now and defend yourself. If you lads, if you want to fight with him. And she took me out of the car basically to defend myself. Yeah. And I was so nervous, like I was so scared, like knowing that the other lads were there, they could have jumped in at any time. I was probably about 14 at the time. And I had the fight. I don't even know. I can't even remember how I did. I probably didn't even win the fight. But what I did do is the bullying stopped from that person. It stopped because I showed that I wasn't going to put up for that. I was going to stand up for myself.
Yes, but you see, this is you can't run away from your problems forever. You see that you have to have the acceptance that's happening to you first. So it's like the first thing is the first step to solving any problem is accepting you've got one, right? Which is a lot of people don't want to do that. And then when you've been through it, me and you can talk about it because we've been there. But when you try and explain to somebody, but they're bullies, they're really tough, and you're like, no, if they were tough, they'd be fighters. Yeah, bullies never bother to learn how to fight. And don't get me wrong, it's like the old Friedrich Nietzsche line, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And you go, yeah, but it still hurts. That's one that no one ever wants. That's the bit at the end that should in brackets go, yeah, but it still really hurts. What it does, I know from my personal experience with bullying, is it will never leave you, ever. I'll get in from work. The chair's really like, where I live. I live in a lovely house, got a lovely life. My wife's wonderful. And I get in through the door. I've had a hard day working on a building site, which, by the way, I love, create or destroy, right? And I get in, and then sometimes I feel lazy. And even if I'm just teaching classes, but if I'm teaching classes, it's not really that much of a workout. But then it's like, say on a Friday night, pre-lockdown, I'm going to go up and I'm going to drive the 35, 40 minutes it takes to get to Warsaw. You've trained with Neil Simpkin, you know what he's like. This is a room full of absolute killers who know how to, and they're all like 20, sometimes 30 years younger than me now. And you walk in through the door, and it's like, because what I've got is, I use that now, because if I ever feel like, no, maybe you should take the foot off the gas a little bit, Mick, you don't need to do it anymore. I immediately can revert my mindset back to that scared kid, in his teens. And then I'm like, no, I can't live like that. I just can't, I can't accept, no, that isn't. And deep down, unfortunately, I know that's who I actually am. Under all of these coping mechanisms and the years and years of putting a veneer on top of it. So the point is now, I am pretty tough, you know what I mean? But then again, it's like I've said before, if you do something 36 years and you haven't got good at it, you should have picked a better hobby, mate, because, and again, it's like, me and you have rolled, and it's like the point where I'm sorry, you know, you're younger, you're fitter than me, but there's absolutely no way you should be better than me because you just haven't done it as much as me. I do it more than you. And again, especially with bullying, it's if you come through it, it can be a great catalyzing experience for you because, first of all, you don't know where you want to be unless you know where you are. And when you're at rock bottom, it's like, because most people are at rock bottom, they don't realize it. You know, that's just their existence. But when you're that low, you look up. This sounds cliche, but when you've been beaten down, right? When you look up, you're looking up twice as far as anyone else, because to get to where they are, which is like no disrespect, but just an average life or a mundane, boring life, which, by the way, is people wanted excitement at the start of the year. I want this year to be a very exciting year. Yeah, some guy eats a bat over in Wuhan. We've all got an exciting year. You know what I mean? I'm joking on that part there, but the thing that I found with it was the learning experience. And again, I've dealt with quite a few characters over the years who've got addictions. And Henzo Gracie's the man who said this to me once. He said, "You don't change your addictive nature, you just change the addiction." So what it is, it's like, no, but I just don't want to be who I am. And you're like, sorry, mate, you're you. You don't get to change this. What you do get to change now is what you actually do. So that's why when you see a lot of T-shirts with opera non-verba and deeds, not words, and, it's the classic line. I don't listen to people. And it's the truth. Half of the people I meet now, I don't listen to them. I watch what they do. And because the thing is, their actions will always tell me. The words are what they think they're going to do. Their actions are what they're actually doing. You know what I mean? And as I said, I'm one of the lucky ones, though. That's the thing. I've seen loads of people have what I had, lot more in some cases, bit less in some cases, and they're broken. They're broken human beings, and they never recover. I'm quite lucky because I had a very, very binary sort of outlook on life anyway, which was good versus evil, pass or fail. So the thing was, it's only with passage of time, my understanding, where I've gone, well, you can fail, but you fail on your terms. And I'm like, no fail. And that which makes me sound like Rorschach from The Watchmen a little bit, but it's that point where it's like, no, I can't, I just can't be like that. But like what I have got from it is every single one of my positive formative relationships that isn't my family are all through martial arts, every single one of them. And so it's like, if they've not been doing martial arts after they've been hanging out for a while, I get them to do martial arts. So I drag them into it. I'm like, come on, join us.
I know why you're so passionate about martial arts and how it's had an impact on your life, how it's helped you through all of those things, and what the lessons it's taught you. And you always do an amazing talk about that at the end of the seminars that you teach at Excel. You've probably heard the classes going on in the background with like Sally up, Sally down challenge they're doing in a minute. What kind of lessons do you feel martial arts teaches you? Why is it so beneficial to someone that's been bullied out there, or maybe their parents need something in their life that it can really get addicted to that's so positive? What are the things that are so great about martial arts, and the things that it teaches you?
Well, the great thing about martial arts is as we're getting more of an understanding of it. Guru Dan used to always say, Guru Dan in Santo used to always say about Kali. He used to say that all the old Filipino guys used to say to him, "There's magic in this movement." The Sinawali stick movement, and he said, "There's magic in this." And so I love the way the Guru says it. Because Guru says 100 years ago, virology was magic. Because it hadn't changed. It was our understanding of what it was. And then just if we use Sinawali as an example, one of the skills that basically we've devolved out of, or evolved to the point that we don't need, is the fact that because we're so lazy as human beings, we always find the path of least resistance. So we're able to do the easiest thing. And it's something as simple as this hand here crossing the center line So literally, right side of the brain apparently is working here, and as we get to here, the left side as soon as we go past the center line, it's why the Chinese are big on center line work. A lot of martial arts is because it goes to this point here. You go, all right, now we've got to pick up this side here. So they've done brain studies now, so that the science is now catching up with what Guru used to say, which was there's magic. And in the Eskrima especially, they found that with stroke victims, it's actually helped them reconfigure how their thought processes work, especially where if one part of the brain is atrophied, it'll go, right, okay, so it'll reroute it. So what that means is, it means that with martial arts, it gives us a better understanding. This is why when people think that they're enlightened, they're not enlightened, they've just got a better understanding. So they understand that if you spend more than 5 years in martial arts and you train and there's sweat in there, what you'll find out is because we're primal animals, we were designed to walk 30 minimum miles a day, hunting and foraging with a goal in mind to survive. We weren't evolved to sit on the couch watching Netflix. So because we're primal and we have this beast in us, we should embrace it. So we shouldn't deny what we are. Yeah, there is. I'm not saying like this all comes down to bullying. This is why bullying is so important with martial arts, because a bully enjoys exactly the same things that we like, but they like doing it externally onto a human being, where we like to do it to ourselves, which is we like to almost put our ego or our psyche. We like to subjugate it, and we want to bend it to our will, if that makes sense. So with a bully, grab you by the throat, give me all your money. Whereas we'll walk in there and go, I know this is going to suck, but I know, and a lot of the time it isn't even conscious thought. It's people just go there and go, I feel better. Why? Because I've improved. Why? Because I've faced adversity and come back. You know, if you look at what's the Zoom say? If you have a look at the bottom there, it doesn't say Mick Tully today, does it? Because this is if you have a look, what's my tagline say? It
says fall down 8 times, get up 9. Exactly
that. So that literally is, yeah. That's from the quiz that I do with Neil Simkin. Like sometimes I put I had Panic at the Tesco as one of my favourites. I have different ones for the quiz. But that one there is the one. It's like it's the adversity that you get, and you come back from it. And then with martial arts, you choose. Well, think about this for a powerful way of looking at life. We've now been educated to the point, or well, I don't want to use educated. We've been indoctrinated to the point of where we have to have a polite society where we all have to get on and try and work together. And we've noticed now, you know, without getting too heavy, you only have to look at what's happened in America, which is if you get people that are diametrically opposed to each other, dialogue is gone immediately. And then literally it's like, who's the best trained out of you two? And deep down inside of us, we know this. You know, as I've said before, I'm capable of getting on with anybody on the planet because I'm capable of choking out 99% of the people on the planet. So that, and I know that makes me sound like a serial killer, but it's the truth, because it's like, I can be really nice to you because if you want to take it to where I think you want to take it, especially if it's over like a parking space in Morrison's or something, you know, and trust me, I'm certainly not going to go. I'm not going to go to jail for somebody. So that's why my reliance on punching and kicking somebody's gone out the window. So it's like, right, okay, and that's again why jiu-jitsu is a big thing now, because you put on a pair of boxing gloves on a newbie, they haven't got a clue. If you say let's wrestle, they've all wrestled their brother or their sister once. You know what I mean? So they think they can, and again, it's the primal thing, and that's why martial arts, it really appeals on a conscious and a subconscious level to us. Literally, you only have to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs to understand what we need, right? And what do we need? We need, first of all, we need warmth. We need food. We need shelter, protection. Then we like, but that then we get those, and then everything, and it brings it all the way up to self-actualization. But if we don't have that, so if you don't have the potential to be able to protect yourself, what good are you? Right? What's the point in loving somebody if you can't make sure that they're okay? You know what I mean? And then it's like, so what have I learned through hard work? I've learned through hard work now that I've got a house that I really like. And don't get me wrong, you know, if it was a case of someone trying to kill my wife or smash a window in my house, I'm not that guy. But at the same time, it's like, though, you need to have those degrees all the way up. Right? And the most important thing is, you know, it goes back to the last time I had anxiety. What was my fear? My fear was, this is my life over as me. And the other one was, which comes to everyone, which is that fear of death. As I always say, you know, you know, when death comes for me, man, I want to embrace it like a lost friend, because I'll be ready for it then. You know what I mean? It's like that point where I say, yeah, I've lived my life. Let's see what's happening next. But when it's forced upon you, it's different. And that's what martial arts does on a conscious and a subconscious level. It's the point that we want to protect ourselves, but at the same time, one of the great things that you've got, and I'm very conscious of sounding too preachy on it, but with you, is it's a social thing, because we're social animals. But again, as we talked about off camera before we got into it, it's not scalable, because guess what? It isn't scalable because society has proven one thing. We're okay to about 1,500 people individually. Then after that, it's over. We just can't handle it. It's too much. That, and then like I've read a lot into this whole subject, and it's why when you go to a concert or you go to anywhere there's so many people, that's so overwhelming, because you're like, there's way too many people here for me, you know. And it's exhilarating, you know, when you go to a football match, you go but it's that whole understanding that if the mob take over, the lone voice is lost. You know what I mean? And that's why martial arts is great, because with martial arts, it's sorry, mate, it's mano a mano now. And that's what I really love about it, because it's like, right, okay. Yeah, it's like you were saying, you didn't even know how you did it, but I know exactly one thing without you telling me anything about that, is altercation where Diana got you in the car and said, like, right, we're going to go. I know exactly what it was. The minute you hit the one guy with the mouth, the rest of them folded, because they're only along for the ride anyway. They got the benefits of you like feeling a bit uncomfortable and everything. They had no beef with you. The one guy had the beef with you. So that's how it all worked. And that's, again, this is what martial arts is about. Martial arts teaches us, you know, first of all, get all your ducks in a row. And yeah, come on, man. It's the coolest thing in the world, eh?
It's so incredibly empowering, right? When you can learn to defend yourself and you feel that confidence that you are able to defend yourself, that leads to a point where you can get away, you can protect your family if you need to. And we've had students that have come in more recently that have opened up and said, look, I had this experience and I didn't feel like I could defend myself or my family. And that's the reason I started martial arts, as well as he was getting to a point where he felt that he was getting older. He didn't want to feel old. He started to feel older. And he wanted to change that. And now he's like, the transformation has been on incredible.
But you see, you've hit the nail on the head. There's two things there that you said that I love. The first one is the fact that whoever it was had the wherewithal to realize that they just didn't want to feel like that, which is great. Because 9 times out of 10, they have to be put in a really crappy position. And then you're forced into it. And the fact that you're forced into it, you don't have there's no sovereignty there. Because it's like, you know, it's like without sounding judgmental, it's like the guy who gets told he's got type 1 diabetes, and the only way that you change your diet right now, and everyone's like, bravo, which is laudable, by the way. You know, it's there. He's like, he's lost 5 stone, and it's like amazing. You're like, yeah, the only thing is, mate, it was the threat of that made you do it. Yeah, and that's not to knock what you did, which is great. But why didn't you do it before that? You know, why? Why did it take the threat of something really bad to do that? Whereas like the individual you're talking about did that. That was, yeah, it was amazing to just be able to go, yeah, that isn't for me. I can't feel like that. But the other one, especially about the aging process and getting older, is one thing that's always fascinated me about the media is, you remember years ago, there'd be like that God bless these guys. They're just ages cool with quite a lot of them. But it was a lot of the guys who were like D-Day veterans and stuff. I had a friend of mine who was like, he passed away just this year, and he was a Normandy veteran, and he told me like what it was like, and he said, "See, Saving Private Ryan." I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Times that by 5," and I was like, "You what?" And he went, "Yeah." And somebody had tried to mug him coming out of the pub. Worst mistake ever. He absolutely smashed these two kids, right? And he was like in his 80s at this stage. And he says, "Everything goes." He goes, "But the mindset doesn't." And he goes, and then he turned around. He goes, "Do you think these two little prats?" He said something a lot stronger than that. But he said, "I'm careful that who's watching this." And he said, "You think these two little prats scare me?" He goes, "I saw my mates go through hell." He goes, "And we were fighting Hitler." He goes, "Think about that for a minute." He goes, "And these guys are going to try it on with me." And it was like, so it's like, there's so many things that go, but the mindset is the one. But unfortunately, the mindset has to be built on a foundation of skills, repetition. And again, it's like, how do you get good at something? Go to boredom and keep going. And it's like, yeah, but all right. Oh, sorry. So you wanted a weekend course, did you? Oh, sorry, we don't do that. You know what I mean? And or the other one is one of my personal favorites. How can I get as good as you, Mick? Like, jump in a DeLorean, hit 88, go back 35 years, or just start working now. Neil Adams always says there's the two best times to start martial arts: 30 years ago or tomorrow, or today. Sorry. And it's like one of my favorite lines is, especially now, like, luckily enough, the great thing about jiu-jitsu is I like to use jiu-jitsu as the analogy because it's what I do a lot of training at the moment. And the other one is I'm learning so much more about myself in it. It was like the last 10 years where I've been the nail, I can't really remember the beatings anymore, because now anyone walks into the gym, all right, you get the younger guys who are really, really good, but I'm still there. I'm still hanging with those guys. And I'm like legitimately one of the hammers. So, when they walk in and you're like, yeah, man. And it's funny because that only came from just getting repeatedly, as I've used one of my favorite lines about BJJ, and you'll know this one, is you don't get good at Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You run out of ways of being rubbish at jiu-jitsu. That's how it works. It's like, oh God, I've done this 1,000 times and it still hasn't worked. Okay, behavioral flexibility time, move on to something else. And that's the one thing that martial arts does teach you, is like the behavioral flexibility. It isn't working, get out.
That's the mindset side of it, what are the main things it's taught you there? And like top 3 things in space of a minute, what would you say the main mindset shifts that martial arts has taught you?
First of all, you don't get anything in life without hard work. Perseverance is secondly. And thirdly, that your ego will delude you, but at the same time empower you. So literally, it's that your ego is a bit like the devil and the angel on your shoulder. Yeah. And it's like, sometimes he's telling the truth, sometimes he's telling the truth. But the fact that you're just going to question it is the one. What martial arts is like, don't ever believe your own press. So, because that is no good anyway. Secondly, if you want to do what I do without doing what I do, that isn't going to happen. And again, like, it's why it's so good for children, because it's like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work at all. Or it phones it in. And then that's why it's so good for children, because you become addicted to actually the joy of learning, which is one of the things that I like. It's not even, I don't even care what the material is. It's the fact that I know something now that I didn't know an hour ago. How amazing is that? And I use it all the time. I'm like, just imagine if everything in life was, every time you did something, it's like, and I know with us it's quite geeky because it's like how to deliver a sidekick, but then you just switch that to everything else in life, and then it's like that's how you'll be successful. And again, it's like yeah, as I've said, it's one of the questions you've heard me say this to the kids when I teach. What do you want to be, tough or smart? And it's like 9 times out of 10 that you'll get the kid go, I want to be tough. And then you get the one kid who goes, I want to be smart. I go, yeah, because if you're smart, you can learn to be tough. If you're tough, you can't learn to be smart. And then they go, oh, wow. And again, it just, it's you have to embrace who you are. And you just can't be a fraud. And you want to be a fraud, then great. But why would you want to be? You only got one shot at this.
So sorry, Mick, if someone's experiencing bullying right now, what would you tell them? What would you say to them?
First of all, I'd say to them, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So the first thing you got to remember is you're going to have to change. And again, it was like you mentioned earlier, it's like I can only change the things that I can control. Yeah. So what can you control? Who you're getting bullied by? Is it at school? Yeah, right. Okay, then I would speak to a responsible adult first of all. If you do martial arts, speak to because there's nothing better than turning up to a school with a decent guy who's got a decent left hook. You know what I mean? That's always a good thing, right? Unfortunately, with teachers are so stretched at the moment. Like my sons are all teachers, and they're stretched. Yeah, they're stretched before they even get to try and educate people. So that isn't really their problem. And yet, like the whole thing about bullies being cowards, they may be cowards, but they can still inflict pain on you. And you have to become like an agent for change for yourself. So literally, you have to take ownership of the fact that you're getting bullied. So, and when I say take ownership of it, don't go there and start listening to like My Chemical Romance, crying your eyes out and becoming an emo about it. Turn around going, I don't want to be this. This isn't what I'm supposed to be. And if anything, get angry. Look at it and go, who are you? And this is like, especially when children come to me, and I've got 100% success rate with children who get bullied at school. The first thing I always say is, so you get bullied what, by a tramp? Like, so I know this makes me sound judgmental, but bullies normally take it out on you because they're not happy with what they've got going on in their life. So, and 9 times out of 10, you're like an illustration of what they would like to be, which is very, very bizarre. So it's like, oh, I hate you, and you hate me because you want to be me. Let's sit down. Tell me more about your mother. Like that. It's like very Sigmund Freud-esque. And it's like, so first of all, you have to realize that the only way you can do it is you're going to have to do something to change. So you either change your environment, change your geography, get yourself out of there, or embrace it. And for me it worked. And their students are yours. They're in the right place anyway. They're going in the right direction. But one piece of advice I would give to anybody is, don't ever start a fight, but make sure you're always the one that finishes it. That's the one thing that I truly believe in. And it's with children, it sounds savage when I say this, but it's like, punch them in the throat. And like, what? That's not really Budo. And I went, but you can always apologize afterwards. So it's like, it's easier to apologize than it is to ask for permission. If you have to ask for permission, it's pretty rough. But if you just turn around and say, bang, and what it is, and they've still got, and they'll still, if you break their nose, they've still got a broken nose. And what they know then is every time they start something with you, they're going to get another broken nose. And what they'll do is they'll move on there because they're predators. They'll just pick an easier victim. And then obviously don't fall into the whole thing of, but I don't want them to bully anyone else. This sounds really savage and very, very selfish. But selfishness is a trait, I believe, that should be encouraged. But like when I say selfishness, I mean it in a good way. So it's like, no, you should be selfish, because guess what? It's like, why should you take the dick? And it's like whoever. And if they started bullying somebody else and they were your friend, then go, come join me, come down with me down to Liam's. Come down to Excel. I'll show you how to do it. Oh, Mick Tully will be up soon. Liam's going to book him in for a seminar. He'll show me how to
yes.
do it. You know what I mean. But it's like, that's it. Like there has to be action, because otherwise it's literally like not going to work. and you've got a very limited, finite amount of resources. And yeah, think about it this way. You wouldn't sit at home putting the lottery on twice a week, hoping that's going to pay your mortgage. It doesn't work like that. You get out, you do your 40 hours a week, and you just get your head down and you work. And it will happen. And especially for the younger guys who are watching this, it doesn't last forever. Yeah, but you got to remember, I'm an old guy now, so I didn't, I actually don't think I would have survived if social media had been around, because social media is literally, if you ever seen the movie Con Air, it's one of the things that I think we should have, if we could uninvent something, I think we should uninvent.
I know that you would. I know that you would have. You got such a strong mindset that you would have found a way. You would have taken responsibility for it. You would have made the changes that you needed to make. You would have, no doubt about that. And final question, Mick, just to wrap it all up. How do you excel in life?
By being me, mate. But literally that. I love who I am. I love my lifestyle. I have I have way more successful friends than mine, Liam being one of them, friends of mine who are richer than me. But I will take the Pepsi challenge with anyone. I say, Liam knows the currency, I don't work in Bitcoin or money, I work in happiness. And I get up in the morning and you go, oh, so you're just a plasterer. It's one of my favorite lines. And then, Liam knows this line. It's one of my favorites. I would rather someone was overwhelmed than disappointed. Because if somebody saw me and they were underwhelmed when they met me, I'd be absolutely gutted. But when they're surprised and they go, man, so you're a plasterer. You talk about Plato, and you talk about Aristotle, you talk about the great thinkers, and you're interested in geopolitics, socioeconomics, and you speak 3 languages. How? Because education doesn't stop at school. I excel because I actually like who I am, and that's the thing. It's like, even the bits of me that as I always said to my wife, I marvel at the fact that she, not that she doesn't like me, she loves me, and she knows me. She knows everything about me. She knows the whole, as I said, when this lockdown first started happening, when the projections were coming in, it was like 10% of the population are going to get this, and they might not survive and everything. And I had a wobble for 2 days, and then I was like, right, okay. So we're going to be like Mickville, because I'll be the king of this place. You know what I mean? I'll be Emperor Mick the First. Because I've worked too hard to let this all go now, and that's what it's done. It's like it's a great vehicle for personal development if you want it to be, and it can be 1 hour a week if you just want to lose weight. You know what I mean? Or whatever. It literally is. It's all things to all men. I know that sounds in this time where we need all things to all humankind. Then let's put it that way. But it's like there's some great, amazing lessons you learn all the way through. And as it's going on, it just gets better. Some of the questions you get asked now are like, right, okay, so the stuff I used to be able to do, why can't I do it as well? Right, so what can I do to plug that gap? So what am I in this for? And it's, again, I get to hang out with cool people. All of my relationships through martial arts are pretty much as honest as you're going to get, because there'll be at least once in my life, you've been there with me. It's like, next 5 minutes, mate, I will kill you or die trying. And you know what I'm like. I'm ruthless. I'm ruthless because I've made myself believe it. It's the one thing, especially I leave this with the young guys who are just starting out in training and starting to question themselves. Just fake it till you make it. Because what will happen is, the person I am now isn't the person deep down that I was never supposed to be this guy, ever. But what I've done is I've faked it so much that now it is me. And the real me doesn't exist. I know that sounds like the duality of man sort of thing. But it really is. It's that point where it's like, no, this is what I am now. And again, it's like, what do you measure success on? The one thing that we did learn from this whole lockdown is the amount of people that had cars on their drive that they couldn't go anywhere. So you got that car to impress your neighbour that you don't really like, but you can't go, and now we're all in the same boat. And that's what the great thing about all of this has been. It's literally put us all on a level playing field where it's like, well, I go away on holiday 3 times a year. Skegness, Blackpool, Highlands. Oh, I'm going to LA. You might not go to LA for about 2 years now, mate. Why not? Well, yeah, we're not going to do it because we have to be morally and socially responsible, and that's what it's got. And that's right now. If where everyone else is failing, this is where you are. You should be excelling. And yeah, you know yourself. We talked about this off camera, mate. Yeah, those guys I looked at and I was like, wow. And this isn't being judgmental on them, but what they had was they had the illusion of everything. And then when it hit, as I said, again, this is Dave Chappelle, not me, but I wish I could claim it. Adults, you're now reaping the benefits or the penalties of choices you made 20 years ago. Kids, what you're finding out now is, guess what? You're being grounded by the government. But guess what? Your mum and dad being grounded by the government too. We're all being grounded by the government. Just for what? What reason? So it's like, what? I can't do anything. Really? I check Liam's social media. There's 3 Zoom classes a night at the moment. Isn't there with you guys?
Oh, more than that. 5, 7.
5? Yeah.
More.
Oh, I can't train. Really? But you don't even have to travel now. Oh, but there's nobody there to push me. Yes, there is. Right in there. That's the guy. And you're making the choice. Do you want it? Liam, we will sign off on this because I know you know it. Do you want to be ordinary or do you want to be extraordinary? And if you want to be extraordinary, what do you have to do to be extraordinary? Extra. That's it.
Definitely.
That's it. It's as simple as that. Yeah, the clue's in the title. So that's how I excel, mate. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything. I appreciate it.
Make sure I get a link so I can send this to people.
100%.